Welcome back. It is June 21 of 2015. We're going to switch gears now. We're going to take a look at Franz Brentano's ethics, the very foundation of his ethics, the very first moments. And we'll take a look at it in three-moment triad, and we'll begin with the logical preference for the good and the superiority in itself. And Brentano says the Greeks possessed as an ideal for morality a notion of superiority that was kalos, there is the omicron, so it's long, it's kalos. Kalos equaled beauty, the Greek beauty, but the Greek beauty as kalos was really moral commendability. And the other ideal, the other superiority of moral concept, was kalak agathia, and the kalak agathia meant to be of a noble character, so nobility, moral nobility. But Brentano says neither of these were aesthesis-based. They weren't an aesthetic, moral, and intellectual insight based on aesthetics. It had more of a depth of certitude to it. Now this superiority is what Brentano adopts as his fundamental in itself superiority for morality, for ethics, but that becomes incarnated within the individual self. And that's the key to Brentano's position, the second moment, about the internalization. So let's take a look at the incarnated reference of superiority for logical preference in ethics. Self possesses an inner superiority for making moral judgments, and this essential superiority is our inward rightness of certitude. So it's more of a certitude than it is an aesthetic. And it becomes formulated and internalized as our motivational base of ethical intent. It's very much a motivation base, so it's a motivational base of ethical intent. So, he asks, what constitutes our motivational base? It's guided by a determining principle of an essential eschatological end that qualifies everything. It is innately praxis-oriented. It innately desires to go out of itself in praxis, and to do so it will employ a manifold set of means to posit itself. It needs mediation. Positing of the motivational base requires passing through the mediation of praxis adaptation, according to Brentano, where the means are adapted to a very practical end. Now here's the key. We get to note 5, forming our praxis and adaptation of the good. In other words, implementing our ethic. How does this take place? Brentano says in our objective encounter, we form two internal impressions, sensate impressions and psychical imprinted impressions that are applied over the sensate impression. So there's an imprinting with the psychical. So what is the psychical imprinted impression? It bears our intentional relation to the sensate realm. In other words, it's our perception, which is always intentional. And the key term for Brentano, which we've already discussed, is proterosis. And there are three classes of that are enclosed within our imprinted psychical intention. It is composed of ideas. We store the concrete impression and its abstract sign name within memory. We form judgments. We relate the sign names into a model and form an intentional judgment based on that sign model. And then emotional slant. We lean in emotionally toward the sign model of intention that we favor. So it's signs, judgments, and emotional slant combined to form a proterosis of our ethical motivational base. Now, we enjoin our sign model of intent with a set of fundamental axioms. And it gives us four fundamental axioms of ethics. Enlarging the self's realm of sign ideas increases the capacity for the good within a self. This class of sign ideas constitutes the good in itself for Brentano. The self's psychical insight of imprinting constitutes the good in itself also. And then all of the above, the sign ideas and the psychical intentional imprinting, are constituted within a generic concept of the noble good, the noble love, which accounts for their being counted as good in themselves because they are centered on this generic concept of nobility, noble love. So moral judgment of the good occurs for Brentano, through psychical adding. Ethics is psychical adding. Imagination calls up an impression for a second time, then we add our psychical intention imprint to the recollection. It raises it to the better good, to the good to be desired. Therefore, the criteria for ethics, according to Brentano, consists of proterosis and ideas, judgments, and emotional slant within proterosis, and the axiom of Aristotelian kalos, or moral nobility and commendability, and the act of the recollection of calling it up for a second time and imprinting it as the better good, the good to be desired. So proterosis, the axiom of kalos, and recollection are the criteria for forming our ethical stance and our ethical positing. That leads us to actualization of the natural right, and actualization means to make the natural right, to make it fast, and it's made fast through a three-step process. Sanctioning authenticates positive judgments that are emerging out of the realm of preference of logic. It means to be sanctioned by the highest authority. There's an actualization of beauty as kalos, the Greek kalos, or moral nobility. And then finally there is recognition, a process of recognizing the universality of positings reflecting the kalak agathia, or nobility character, noble character. So essentially, he has given us his version of a Hegelian ethics of recognition. It boils down to a Hegelian ethics of recognition founded on the original superiority in itself of kalos beauty, the Greek beauty, which is really moral commendability, and kalak agathia, which is noble character. So nobility, moral nobility, constitutes the starting point for Brentano. It passes through the individual agent who possesses a proterosis of ideas, judgments, and emotional slant, coupled with an axiom that says that this psychical insight of imprinting is the good in itself, to be imprinted on reality, because it is nested in noble love, the generic concept of noble love. That leads to psychical adding that imprint to sensate reality, to form our ethical positing, and that becomes sanctioned by the highest authority. That becomes an actualization of Greek beauty, and we seek recognition at the level of universality. In other words, we participate in a Hegelian ethics of recognition that takes up the Greek superior concepts of moral nobility. So it gives us a great look at Brentano's first emerging lesson on ethics that was put together actually in 1902. So we moved on from descriptive psychology, the lectures of descriptive psychology. We moved on to 1902, and it was reprinted in 2015.